Hey, everybody. Look, it is the 8th anniversary, our 8th birthday for Trekland Tuesdays Live with me, Dr. Trek, Larry Nemecek, coming at you here from the heart of Trekland, as I said, through Portal 47, and yes, the Trekland Treks and everything here at Trekland HQ, Trekland Enterprises. Everybody, I am so excited to be back with you here for another Tuesday for some, hopefully, sanity, clarity, and a bigger picture in all things Star Trek. Can you believe it? 8 years, and listen, hang on. I hope you made it, because later on I'm going to be giving away a little door prize, even here on free live Tuesday afternoon Trekland. It's a season 5 Blu-ray of Lower Decks. Okay? So you want to be around for that? You want to be here in the chat? Hang on. We will do this kind of toward the end of the hour or show or whatever we get here to. But I want to thank everybody. I don't know whether you folks in the chat, if you have been with me for years or a recent convert or a recent discovery or whatever. It's been quite a journey over 8 years, and a lot of you that have been around for a long time. Some of you went from Tuesdays Live here to joining me in the portal, and thank you for being Portales for all these years. My subscription backstage pass all year long. Who gets the Minicon blues when we have a Minicon all year long? The post-con blues, that is. And a lot of you come over from the Trek Files. A lot of you come over from when I've guested somewhere else, either the live shows, Vegas or something else, or maybe even virtual TrekCon if we cross paths. I know a lot of you have been Twitch raiders, raiders of one other, the chat pack. Everybody's come here from a different way, and some folks, go with me all the way back to the beginning when I wasn't sure exactly what was happening. But listen, I'm so glad to have you today. You would think I would get a cake and 8 candles, but I didn't. I need to do that next year because 9 is a big one. Today, I'm going to have a little soapbox. It's going to be more of a party soapbox, actually. Looking back at some of these 8 years of what's happened. And listen, if you're joining us later on YouTube, please leave a comment on anything you hear picking up here, because I love to have the conversation extended on YouTube. And also just think you may be able to join us around 1-ish, 2-ish on Tuesday afternoon Pacific time, 4-ish, 5-ish some weeks on Eastern. And yes, that means that everybody in Europe, in the UK, and on the continent, at least in Central Europe time, can join us at around 9-ish, 10-ish every week. So love to have you with there. And we've got our Aussies. We've got folks from around the rest of the world too with us at times. 8 years. 8 years, guys. See, I dressed up a little for today. I didn't do the cake, but I did this. I wanted to throw a little something at you. What got me thinking was, I've said this a lot, and some of you that were there. I mean, we started. My phone is now the HD camera. Thank you, Macintosh systems, Apple systems. But in the very beginning, I mean, I literally, the first time we did this, here, take a look, okay? This is the opening seconds of what became Trekland Tuesdays 1. And this happened because, the trailer for Discovery itself, much less episode 1, season 1, had just dropped, and it felt like the world went nutso. Little did I know it was just a portent for everything across the board to come. But this was April 2017, and Portal 47 was coming up on 2 years old, but Portal 47 was a limited subscription. You paid for it. We were all in a thing together. This thing called live streaming was still a baby in its infancy. Here's what happened on April 16th, 2017. Hey, everybody. Welcome, Mother and Father Federation and all the ships at space. Welcome from deep inside Portal 47 here at Trekland HQ. No, it's just Larry. Sorry I was a little late there, fumbling around with Facebook Live, all this pioneering stuff, although I know there's plenty of pros out there. I just wanted to jump on today, get some things off my desk. There's a lot going on. I know I've been a little out of it working on Con of Wrath, finally editing, and my documentary, conofwrath.com, and working on Portal 47. But there's some things that have been going on, as usual, online. I talk about them a lot when I get interviewed or on podcasts, like with Chris at the Ready Room on Trek FM. Some of the links are in this post that I made today. But at the same time, it's getting exciting that we'd been talking about upfronts lately, and then it took Trek Movie to remind me the other day that that's this week, and everybody should be watching for that. At the same time, a lot of the excitement around it is tempered by this good old tendency and good old fandom to the 10% that's just freaking out. Now, I know a lot of this is about people are frustrated and people are passionate. That's what you always say, right? You're passionate. But, I mean, we have history. It's like with everything else. It's like with our current events. We have a history. We can look back at other times. And, with Star Trek, it's like, my God, the worst of all was the 10 years we didn't have anything but 3 flimsy little seasons of reruns trying to get a movie back the first time. Just establish the fact that Star Trek deserved to be back and could actually make some money for the people that need that to happen. But then, then the times before Next Generation, when it was really a naysayer, the time before The Wrath of Khan, when people actually it was leaked that... and I don't know what we're going to do about the people who are really, really, really upset about the all-access format. That's the way of life. You're not going to change that. Maybe that will change in 2 or 3 years, but for right now, that's a moot point. The doomsdaying I was talking about is the fact that the delays mean everything is horrible. I get the idea that there are people taking home paychecks right now who work in television, who are actors, who are crew people, who are writers, who are directors, who are designers, who are actively working on this show. And rather than it being blown up, kudos to even Les Moonves, who's taken his share of bashing over the years. Kudos to them for not demanding it be delivered at the agreed upon initial January or even May this month. So yeah, all those on the road at some conventions. SoonerCon, San Diego Comic-Con comment on Facebook. I've seeded it a million different places. I figure if everybody else can do that, I can too. And we'll hear back from you guys, okay? Everybody, take it easy out there. Stay safe, stay woke, and trek well. So, yes. So, did you like the wobble? I hope you didn't get seasick there. That was me. I think that was me holding my camera by hand and not even having anything to deal with it, because you don't think about how wobbly it looks 18 inches in front of your face, right? Now, I don't think that was on a Tuesday, but within a week, here's what happened.
I know, it's impossible. Welcome to the debut of Trekland Tuesdays with Dr. Trek. Can you see it through the light? There it is. I know, seriously.
We might even figure out how to
we will work on our flipping. We will work on all that. But, hey, this is going to be, believe it or not, the beginning...
Doors open.
The beginning of what I hope will be just a few minutes to jump in on Tuesdays and talk about what's been going on, because it seems like we're living in a faster and faster moving world. I know, shock. But even in Star Trek, I mean, we've had 12 years of being in the desert, not used to this pace picking up like it has been, and sometimes I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Case in point, the last week, hard on the heels of the trailer coming out from CBS at the upfronts a couple of weeks ago, within the fandom realm, people debate about all access, people debate the good, the bad, the canon, the whatever. But I don't know if we were quite ready for this sidebar coming in that's now been picked up by the mainstream media. Now, we're used to our little Trek world of media and blogs and everybody following along Star Trek. Discovery upping the game here has brought in all the sci-fi and geek blogs and media and websites. But, we've got the mainstream taking attention here because of this latest news story. And it's all about the, call them what you will. I mean, look, here's my friend Manu, writing on the New Yorker, which of course is not going to show up on camera. TheNewYorker.com. For alt-right trolls, Star Trek Discovery is an unsafe place. That's bugged a lot of longtime fans. People are wondering where in the world that came from. Well, I mean, we saw some of that last year. And on the good side, the good thing about that's where we're coming from, guys.
Okay.
Now, listen, I have my politics. You all do too. But I think we've gotten used to. Here's an analogy that Spock would appreciate, and probably even Geordi more so. I think we've gotten used to. We always thought of politics being in the visible spectrum, scientifically, as a way of looking at it. From red to blue, violet on the other extreme. Did you see what I did there? Red to blue, right? And we're used to debating and arguing things somewhere along the spectrum. And I think what's happened is we've had people come in literally from the unseen, invisible waves of the spectrum, right? Infrared, ultraviolet. Anyway, they've been unseen. But, the good thing is the longer we know our science, the more ways we have of detecting the unknown. And, hey, we all, IDIC, yes, diversity, but we celebrate diversity all the way back to Gene. That's what was so telling, and that's why I was so thrilled that, yes, I know we took over the mainstream media, because when all of those reports started to surface, there weren't just reports about pointing it out. People got it. People knew what was going on. How can you be a Star Trek fan and not embrace diversity? At least to some degree, right? Maybe you're going to hate those Klingons and Cardassians and Romulans and Dominion and Borg and whatever, within story limits. But that was the point of Star Trek, that we often turned even our enemies, quote unquote. So, well, everybody, see you next week. If not, so, Portal 47, where no savvy fan has gone before. Portal47.net if you enjoy this kind of thing. Guys, we'll see you next week. Hopefully this is going to be a weekly thing. I'll settle in. We'll get this flippy camera thing settled out. No wobble this week. And, hey, stay safe, stay woke, and trek well, everybody. See you next week. If not sooner.
Some improvement. And I had a title, and I had things. I hadn't learned how to flip the camera yet, or much less shut the door behind me, let you see my lovely hall back there in Trekland HQ version 1. But I just one more of these, because this is a year later. So here's the thing. I was marking episode 50, episode 100, episode 150, but I wasn't thinking about year anniversaries until just the last 3 or 4 years. So there's no big hoo-ha, there's no party, there's no cake here either. But I've gone back and looked at the closest thing to April 16th, which was the debut day there.
Hey, and can you cosplay Ghost Trek?
1 year in.
That's it. Today on Trekland Tuesdays Live with Dr. Trek. That's me, Larry Nemecek, coming at you from Trekland HQ right through Portal 47. A kind of a fun topic today. This occurred to me, actually, one of our Treklanders somewhere, I think on one of the Facebook pages, asked me about this a few weeks ago. And actually it harkens back to about our one of our early episodes on the Trek Files. Somebody had this brainstorm of an idea. And I'm telling you, this is all of these are letters and hot. How you can see it. 7 p.m. Pacific on Wednesday, May 16th. Oscar and
Spring.
It's one way, once, twice, another Tuesday. Sorry we were a little slow getting started, but that's the way the world works these days. Another Tuesday. I will still be at WhedonCon. I'm waiting to see my exact schedule, but I know I'll be there Saturday of WhedonCon here in LA. And in SoonerCon in Oklahoma City at the end of June, that June weekend. Till then, I hope I see you online somewhere. All my places. And of course, until at least next Tuesday live, stay healthy, everybody. Stay woke. And trek well, everybody.
So, yeah, so TTL here has come a long way. Hey, a lot of you were with me in the days, not just shaky camera, and it was a big thing to flip your camera the right way, but all the years of Zooming and virtualing taking over, right? I mean, like, for the point where many times we would have slowdowns in our capacity and our bandwidth, and I would have latency issues, And some of that was upgrading my own computers and my own gear here. And some of it was pushing the limits of the Wi-Fi we had at the time in those ancient days of 2017 and 2018. And that's pre-pandemic, everybody. The pandemic was like the space race, the Sputnik launch that jump started all of this virtualing together. I mean, people had been live streaming for a while, but it was not everybody and their dog and their grandma. And that was, I'm watching that now and thinking those were still just HD cameras, regular D cameras. That was me still using my phone before we HDs, much less 4Ks. And that was way before. That was 2018, that last one. Now, again, I wasn't marking the anniversaries and all that, but this whole little exercise and having an anniversary and marking, I mean, it's fun to party, right? On your birthday, on your wedding anniversary, on the premiere anniversaries of Star Treks or the finales or anything that's worth celebrating that way. And part of usually the celebrating is, you know, taking a second to think about what the repercussions have been, think about the ripples, think about what has changed, what's evolved, hopefully what's evolved, and hopefully evolved. Does an evolution imply that it's something for the better? Doesn't it mean change? Not just evolution isn't just change. It's usually change for the better, change for survival, which last time I checked is usually better. I guess it depends on your point of view. If it's your survival, it's definitely better. If it's something you don't want and it's surviving, then maybe that's not the best thing. But usually when we talk about evolution, we're talking about something for a better purpose, for a more beneficial, positive reason. Whether it's just plain old survival or it's a better way to do things, a better way to think about things. I've been thinking a little bit about what has changed since I was first done. Now, look, you heard me say it in that first one there. The toxic tubers were out and grunting, not just live streaming, but nice professional, slick professional YouTubes. You guys remember the first year or two, the confusion and the chaos of trying to get Star Trek up and running. That was all of what Discovery was about. Remember, this was announced. A new Star Trek coming back to small screen TV was announced right around Thanksgiving of 2015. So I had only been doing Portal 47 to remember all the Berman era people and older. And then 6 months in, we found out there would be a new generation of some kind. And something besides the Kelvin movies, something actually in prime. And people were excited and skeptical and wondering. And of course, we got into all the slowdowns. It's a hard thing to start up the machine. The well-oiled machine doesn't always start off so well-oiled. And we lived through that. And a lot of you folks who've just come in the last 2, 3, 4 years, it was crazy time. It was crazy time. It was like the motion picture development on steroids. And then we got into the controversies when the Klingon image was leaked, when the different trailers happened, and you got brought out the 5% right-wing trolls that I was talking about. We weren't even up on top of 2017. We still thought that Facebook was cool and fun. And Twitter. We didn't know the damage and the wreckage that algorithms were doing, because algorithms tend to, what do? They magnetize the most looks and the most likes. Well, just like rubbernecking a traffic accident, that's not the best of humanity, but people are human nature, and we're all watching this. Some of us try to resist. But it's that same thing, only magnified. It's the same thing, only on evil, poisonous, toxic steroids. And we weren't even aware yet. We were starting to get there. We had a new president in when I started this show that was making everybody look at everything twice. Star Trek had just finally gotten political with the Trek Against Trump page on Facebook in a small, hesitant, but decisive way. And things had changed. Things had started to change. And I got the way it rolled over into online fandom, even though we'd had Gamergate 2 or 3 years before, and maybe not quite understood that was a dress rehearsal for a broader canvas of toxicity. And, I don't want to go to all the old buzzwords because we've heard them so often, but it was baby steps. And it was just sad that at the same time that was happening culturally, we had a Star Trek in chaos. And at times those roads crossed. And it's easy now to look back and see that. But it's fun to go back and look and see how week after week, some of us were trying to, and there was a time when I thought I'd better hurry up and get this live weekly show up and running for whatever the hell good it would do, because all I saw across YouTube, at least getting all the 100,000 views and likes and subscriptions, were the toxic tubers. And there were some of us desperately trying to get our numbers in and numbers up and talk about it. And a lot of folks were doing a much better job of it than I was. They had time, maybe even budget, to be slick, and before Patreons took over and funded everything. So that was the early years. But aside from settling through, we kind of rode the rims. We kind of hung on to the Jesus handles and got through the early bit of discovery. And then after a year or two of that, had the blessing event of seeing Anson Mount be Pike and seeing Star Trek get crazy, loving about something week to week, and then demand that show. And then the news about Picard melting down the internet. And then people being a little mixed about, but just realizing what a different shape streaming was going to be, what serialized storytelling was going to be. That was the reality. And just wondering where this was going to go, and watching fandom adjust that way. And watching fandom adjust. And then 3 years in, bang, we have a pandemic. And people are fearful and cautious and torn up. And those of us who had been doing virtual for 5 years by then, that was a topic here one week, was I think virtual will save fandom and maybe civilization as we know it. And that's exactly what happened. And now every Tom, Dick, Harry, everybody and their dog and their grandma can Zoom now. Whereas the first couple of years, I'd try to have guests on Portal 47, and people would have 1990s era webcams that weren't quite up to stuff. Well, that's been a silver lining, if you have to have a silver lining. I mean, it was in 2017, it was radical just to get on. And I remember the impetus for this didn't come from Star Trek, although I was watching this tableau go by and being frustrated at how negative everything was. And like, where's the Will Rogers of fandom right now? Where is the steady, reasonable, oh, come on, oh, I have been around longer than 6 months voice? Where is anybody that have 10 years of perspective, much less 15 or 20 in 2017? Who else? Have we forgotten the 90s and the early aughts? Much less, the origins of fandom that are so storied. Like, what is all this? But no, the impetus didn't come from Trek for me. It was my entrepreneur business circle, the same people that helped me launch Portal 47. And in the beginning, the big question was, do you do Facebook Live or do you do Periscope on Twitter? And I remember one spring retreat, people just looked at me and said, oh my God, Larry, you and your Star Trek audience, you need to be on live. You need to be on live, to paraphrase O'Reilly. And that first week that you saw was me hearing people say you need to be out on live. At the same time, it overlapped a crying need I saw, was for some sanity and clarity and a big picture. I didn't have the words yet, but that was my intention, talking about the crazy that was happening. Like, come on, people, let's stop here and think a minute. Or maybe you're not aware of this, but. And I decided that there was a space for that. There might not always be a hot, stupid, breaking news story that needs some reassurance or some sanity, clarity, and big picture added to it, but that those could be the fun weeks. And in the back of my mind, I knew I was having to be simple. Gang, that's where the illustrious signs came from. I knew I didn't have graphics. I didn't have money or budget, much less technology, to have a crew, to even have one other person switching me on OBS. It had to be a one-man band. And if it's me holding my camera and scrolling on the screen the same screen I'm watching myself on, with one at a time chats. And if I went back and forth too far, I wouldn't be able to say, gang, it was crazy. Those pioneering days. Sounds like I should be wearing my bonnet and fixing the covered wagon. But that's what it was. And we got there. And the biggest kick in the butt, there's a little bit of improvement there. The biggest kick in the butt was the pandemic. We got HD cameras. We got a better stability. I started live streaming to other channels, and thanks to Ali and Life Support Live that we did in the pandemic, and got off Facebook, and finally woke up and realized that I should be on YouTube. I don't know how far back everybody's going to be with me today, and we'll get into the chat in a minute. And you guys know that I'm not ignoring the chat. We will, here in this mode, we'll do that. But I didn't have, it was a one-man band. I didn't have a crew, and I didn't have the capacity to have guests on. But after we adapted Restream and Ecamm for Life Support Live that Ali produced, and then capacities of systems and computers, and we all kind of, it was like wartime upgrades, only it was pandemic time. And we came out of that after a year or so. And yes, someday I'll have the first time I had a guest on. But guys, within a couple of years, I not only had guests on with me, but do you remember the first week of the strike? Some of us who remembered the 07-08 Writers Guild strike knew what was coming, and it seemed surreal that we'd be doing this again. But here it came at you like a runaway freight train. Nothing was going to change. The stupid tech bros running Hollywood had no clue about the backbone of the writers and the actors, and I guess they knew the directors, not so much backbone. But do you remember the first week of the strike? It was a great equalizer because so much of Star Trek since the comeback had been Toronto-based or run out of New York and Toronto, not in LA, not where you have a chance to socialize and meet people. And we had a whole new crop of creatives led by the writers and producers. And the strike was the great equalizer, especially for those of us who weren't in hardcore journalism or connected to a big website. And a lot of my friends that were writing stories and covering for different places, and nobody cared. The new people involved with the show had no memory hole. They had no corporate memory of back 5 years, much less 10 or 15 or 20. And Dr. Trek was not a magic name to 90% of them. So I had to get my access where I could. And of course, I'd shifted over to not doing so much writing, but to be doing this, to be on the air with you live and to be peopled and videoed. And the strike was a great leveler of that, to the point where, and along with social media, to the point where the first week of the strike, Bill Wolkoff from Strange New Worlds, who wound up being a side captain and one of the major voices, the Trek voices who were involved in the strike, we tried an experiment. And I met him on the fly to do this. And I said, would you come on? Can you carry, is there enough Wi-Fi out in front of Warner Brothers that you can walk and carry your phone and talk to me at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday? And he said, no guarantees, but we'll try. And I thought, if there's one place in this damn world that ought to have enough Wi-Fi out in the world, it would be Burbank, California, in front of the Warner Brothers gates. And there was. And he walked and talked and briefed people on the strike live, walking right here on Trekland. One of our finest moments. And then the next week, I didn't do it live, but I went down and talked to several more at the same site. Carlos Cisco and Eric Robbins, a couple more of their former compatriots at Trek, and went out and did a film. And then, of course, the best thing was the first Star Trek day outside the site. And we did Kyle and Scott did a wonderful job on a video that I just took a ton of video. And I did a little live, but we put it together. And it's a great, one of my favorite all-time YouTubes that we did on my channel. The channel that I never promoted until I realized that I was way late to do that. But there you go. We've come so far. 8 years has allowed us to jump on something live. For, sure, you can be at a convention live. You can be at a press conference. You can be in an event and be live. But we can also do things like be live on the strike lines of the hugest strike since 1960, with the writers and the actors out together. It's amazing to me. Back in 2017, to think that we'd be doing that, much less now have the capacity as a one-man band to have guests like last week. Brian Volk-Weiss. Look at, so many guests. It's wonderful now because Portal 47 was always the backstage people from the shows for me. The Trek Files is a very limited historical relevance, but Trekland Tuesdays Live now is the place where I can have authors. We can have folks in merch and licensing. We can have authors who you actually know as an actor, like Nana Visitor recently, right? Or Jay Chataway, the composer. Um, it's been a lot of fun to have guests when something presented itself. I don't go out hunting, and to have guests on special events. Doug's been a guest here to help me mark an anniversary. Aaron Walke has been a guest. I should compile the guests. I should do a guest wall the same way I've got the regular Portal 47. That's so outdated. That's about 4 or 5 years in, and that's a fourth of who we had for 4 years. But that's been exciting. And what's also been exciting is these folks and the people that came before them, all of my TTLers, because a little bit extra like that has helped do things like provide the Restream and the Zoom subscriptions. In the beginning, put in for infrastructure to be able to do things. But the technology has evolved. So we've ridden the wave of that and been able to do things like not only have guests, but go out live and walk the picket line. That was amazing with me back here. I mean, it was just so radical to even be on doing this. It was another step from just recording podcasts, audio, and then camera streams, and then some live streams, sure, and then to have a produced show with multiple people, whether it was multiple hosts or it was a host and a guest. And again, we had, and to come out of all this, where for 12 years, Star Trek was frozen, Star Trek was static, and to come in right as things were thawing out, although the tech had been around for a while, that's been amazing. But what else what's changed in the world? We've had a whole generation now. We've had 5 different series, more to come. We've had a movie. Yeah. We've had a TV movie in the old sense. We're still waiting on a theatrical movie, right? But what has changed? Have our attitudes evolved? 2017 had the DS9 comeback and Voyager and even Enterprise. Had that comeback trail, had the Netflix revolution soaked in enough that people had a completely different view if they had one before, or if they're all coming to fandom now and they never carried that. You have to sit down and explain to people what watching DS9 on the dinkiest station in your market was like once a week when it got bumped for the NHL game or the NBA game in your market. And if you missed 2 or 3, you felt like you were behind, even if you had them recorded. And of course, it was hard to find the recording times because when a game bumped it, it's the same thing as when NFL football back home watching TNG for me on the NFL, on the NBC affiliate, did not always come on at 10:30 Sunday night after the local news because if a game went to overtime, your VCR recording times were messed up. And you finally just had to say, start and play for 4 hours. And I hope somewhere in that 4 hours of tape, or 2 hours of tape, we get the hour episode. Hopefully the game didn't go longer than an hour because they would always bump the primetime shows to run in full, right? Anyway, those are historical moments. Someday, gang, you're going to be explaining to people what life was like before Zooming and before live streaming. It'll be like trying to explain to kids what a typewriter is or what a rotary dial phone is or how you played records on a record player. Yeah. How we watched linear TV with commercials only on 4 channels. And the whole world would sit and do things like watch the finale of MASH. Not just a Super Bowl or election night, but there were other things that weren't live that the world all sat down for in a big way. That's the kind of thing that just in 8 years has already radically shifted so much. The things in our delivery system, the way we look at the delivery systems and the content, I mentioned in those early clips, half of the brouhaha about Discovery was just the CBS All Access, just streaming and paying for it, or streaming, and how the hell does it work? And we've moved way past that now. We've come full circle. We've survived peak TV and cinematic TV, and we've survived the strikes, and now we're looking at the Emperor Has No Clothes on the streaming business model. And are we going to rebundle now to the point where we've just got cable without the cables? Is that where we're going to be? what the hell's going on with audiences and free, what's been the Napster for video, people getting everything free on. What's the turnaround? Why invest in bonus features on your Blu-rays if they're going to be on YouTube in a year? How do you deal with that as a capitalist society still trying to do fun entertainment media? But one thing's happened. I mentioned this at one point, and I don't know. I feel like these days have passed. Do you remember this cartoon? You remember this meme? Has the world moved? Have we so been focusing on the 47 times that Alex Kurtzman has been fired and rehired that the blow has softened against these two? Now that's obviously a meme bit there, but Brandon's been on, like I said, he's been on this 10-year apology tour. He was great. He was great on the cruise. I think some people were actually shocked at how much he was owning up to, but he's been saying that for over 5 years at least now when he's out there. And I think he's older and wiser, and he was such a young buck at the time. But it's like we get so into the world ignored DS9 and Voyager and piffled at Enterprise. And now look at the heights they're held to. Those two bums were just the low life of Trek. Yeah, we'll ruin franchise for food. And now it's who is in charge now? Well, they get the slings and arrows. Everything evolves, everything changes, and generally with Star Trek, everything goes to the rosy. Generally, the sentimental. People accept the third season of the original series now. The faction that hated what Fred Freiberger did to Spock in the third season just bastardized his character, especially with Enterprise Incident and Cloudminders. Spock would never talk like that. Well, now he's died and been resurrected since then. So who the hell knows? And now we're playing with timey-wimey time streams, apparently with no playbook or no end game in sight of how things will be standardized. So your perspective shifts over time. But that's what I wanted to get to. And sometimes we're so busy, especially when we had Fresh Trek 50 weeks a year, when we have been so in the thick of it. And the Trek Industrial Complex, the podcast Industrial Complex. Hey, I'm in that group, I'm telling you. But so much of the world is doing this, and so many people have turned. I'm not knocking that. The mom and pop podcasts and the mom and pop live shows and streams and all of that. Hey, this is still a one-man band, gang. This is still a pop and pop show here. Me and my expensive graphics, right? Thank you, though, Scott and Kyle, for cleaning up my one-man band every week on the edited version. That's with graphics added. That's a marvel. And that's another part of what's happened here as we've evolved, right? Taking the time to edit and add graphics. But whether people sit at home and do it in their basement all day 24/7, or they're finding ways to make it work, we're in this fan opinionated, soaked culture. When I did that first one 7 years ago, it was starting to pick up, but it felt like all the wrong people, all the wrong opinions and attitudes, very skewed. Hey, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but why were they all the same? And why were they coming up? I'm not pointing to extreme right or left. I'm just trying to exploit the extreme anything, and not representative of the very real life people I knew were still out there, whether I saw them at a club meeting or most of the time online, although some people have a problem adjusting to online, but most of all in real life at a convention, or the people I knew in my neighborhood, my locale. I knew most Star Trek fans weren't like that. And it took a while, and streaming is not literal, not linear, where you get the commercials and you get the ratings every day, every week, every month. Streaming was this hocus pocus that allowed some of this to hide, not intentionally for the toxic tubers. It's all conspiracy based. But that opened the door for people to bash and question, and Alex Kurtzman's been hired and fired 47 times. All of that stupid shit. And it was just a world changing so fast. Socials with algorithms we didn't understand the toxicity of. how the hell the streaming world works, and then come to find out nobody there knows either. Yeah, it's been an interesting ride these 8 years. This is what I mean. I'm not criticizing anybody for growing their brand, but look, I had Portal in 2015. This show started in 2017. Within a year, Roddenberry came to me, John and Rod came to me about the Trek Files. It's a year younger, right at a year younger than this show, 2018. And the Trekland Treks Tours, Second Opinion. Thank you, Scott, for getting me to finally review shows in my own way where I wasn't just piling on. And of course, Cadet Alice and Prodigy, which was my great idea, and I've loved doing that. And we've got some recorded. I just want to get some more in the can before she graduates high school. Maybe we'll do that. So I'm not excluding myself from this bunch, but that's something that 8 years ago I had a vague idea that something like that would happen, but how the shape it took, and the fact that it's not that I have an algorithm or I have an app that's acting like a 3-angle camera crew here, or if I have a guest that we have a master and a head, and a one head, 2 head, and a master shot. You don't need that, or you don't have an app mocking that. You might, but people got there without having that exactly. And 10 years ago, that was going to be a long-term goal. And it's amazing, I think, because we all grew up with 3-channel. A lot of us grew up with 3-channel TV, or then a million cable channels. The technology platforms had enough time to simmer before Star Trek entered the picture and glommed onto whatever the platform of the time was. Transition from network one-offs to syndicated stations all over the country at their own time to, well, here's what satellite channels and here's what cable pay channels look like. And now here's what streaming looks like. And all those evolutions and how it affects our Star Trek. And then of course, how the culture is reflecting Star Trek. And how we've been trying to, how some people are a little thrown that, yes, Star Trek has always been woke and political, but really to this extreme, we're going to pedal to the metal it to make up for all of society's sins? Well, maybe we should. It'll all be on the back of Star Trek to do it all at once, and it'll do it in 5 years. Plus, we'll be cool by being serialized, and we'll be as good as Game of Thrones in our gore and violence and our visual effects. I mean, all those stresses going on at the time, and things are kind of settling in, I would say. And you want to lump all of Kurtzman Trek together, that ain't happening. It's a huge spectrum, and it's a huge evolutionary spectrum, much less an intentional and tonal spectrum. And I think people have adapted to how streaming works. I think people have adapted to how serial works. I think writers and producers have adapted to how Trek adapts to streaming and serialized. And you don't have to carry a season with an arc that everything else is secondary to. You can have character arcs with a season arc woven through. And my God, if Lower Decks the last couple of seasons, you can have the season arc with just a light footprint until you need it to finally rear its ugly head. And that was animation. And yes, you can do Star Trek on animation. These are all the awarenesses. Awarenesses, is that a word? These are all the things we've come around to see in 8 years, aside from just, everybody having a much better HD camera here. And if somehow your connectivity goes down, you can still keep going. I don't know, gang. What do you think? What do you think here? I think that's going to do it for me. Yahoo! Next time I will bake a cake. I'll have to pay for another candle, but we'll do that. Maybe I'll have the birthday crown then. One year I had a little cheapy homemade birthday crown. But no, anniversaries, landmarks are times to ponder and reflect, depending on what it is you're doing. It's crazy time culturally, socially, politically, in the States, around the world. Have we evolved in how fandom sees Star Trek? Have we evolved in 8 years of not taking Star Trek for granted? Have we evolved in getting back, as the kids in the 60s did and the 70s, during Vietnam and Watergate and the throes of the civil rights movement and the women's liberation movement and the gay rights movement and the ecology movement. Have we recircled back to where Star Trek sometimes is just a good old teddy bear that's nice to have to remind you what the future should and could be like if we could just get there, and not just a gleaming adventure-filled tech fest of coolness the way it seemed like it got to be in the 90s, when the morality tropes, when things like the drumhead were just an old-fashioned Gene Roddenberry-esque morality tale from the 60s. Oh, remember this? Look, Gene would be so proud. Well, how about the audience now and the world now being proud to have the drumhead and chain of command and duet and down the line. Yeah. We even view differently the way we view Star Trek, I think. I think we've circle back around to embracing it as our sanity medicine, our security blanket, our comfort food, whatever, and not as an escape, but a recharge. That's what I got into a few weeks ago. Well, I don't know if the topics have become as easy. I go back and look at the earlier shows, and it seemed like there was always part of it was the controversy of the week, but I didn't always want to be about the controversy of the week with Discovery. And there were 9 months of the year or whatever where there wasn't fresh Trek when there was still only one new series, right? Somehow we found a way to make it work. And what hasn't changed, I think, is the way you all have been so great to be here every Tuesday. Now, I have my people who pay money to be in Portal, and God bless them. I love that with the things we do with Portal and the focus and the time and the things we get into. Trekland Tuesdays Live has always been a way for me to be out here and talking with everybody and keeping a pulse on what was happening too and around the world. The Trek Files lets me indulge my hardcore history buff inclination and preservation, but in small bite-sized capfuls, in easy to use doses to make and deliver. And John keeps me honest there. And of course, Life Support Live was a great 2-year experiment. And now we have the Trekophiles Tonight community, the Trek Files community, Trekophiles spelled with an F, through the Roddenberry Patreon, the Mission Log Discord, or is it the Roddenberry Discord with Mission Log Patreon? $1 a month, you can come over and be part of the whole Roddenberry Mission Log family, but especially because I do 1 hour and a half dedicated to the Trek Files, recent shows, what's coming up, how we make the Trek Files, some of the things going on there, and we, cross over into just general stuff too. But I try to keep that just about the Trek Files because it had no way for the audience to get collected, and people are slowly finding their way. That's at 4 Pacific on Mondays. If you are so inclined, if you love the Trek Files, I invite you to go over and do that. In fact, you know what? I invite you to join all these folks here. Yes, our TTL club. This is my Patreon family here. This is the Trekland Patreon family. And I really appreciate all of you folks. Chuck A., James Kerwin, Diana Hopkins, Halbert Gunn Johnson, Lawrence Todd, Greg Wickstrom, Mitch Keith, Andrew Jazimski, Justin Weir, Josh Patton, Pranakasha Productions, Chris Jiggins, Keith Rombach, Comedy Forecast. Really appreciate it. And especially on top of that, our live wires. Our live wires are Jesse at Crusher Convo. Hey, Chris Garris, Robert. Yes. Chris, I haven't said your last name enough. I should be. It's good to see you on the Trekophiles too, Chris. Hey, sorry. You guys. Jesse and Chris. And Robert McLean, Byron Bailey, J.R. Poole, Gary Williams, James Durovich, Dave Gregory, Dan Leckie, and Casey Shafsky. Thank you guys so much for the support. I don't have the biggest Patreon in the world, but I may have the best. I know I have one of the cheapest. It's $5, $10. I really appreciate everybody throwing in with me to help support this. I say this every week. I am so behind. I need to get you guys. It seems there's something every week blows me up. I need to get you live wires You $10 folks, your past Portal 47 hours with our guest creatives backstage folks. I can't talk suddenly. Patreon.com/Trekland Live. A little bit too much celebrating of the 8th birthday cake that doesn't exist? I guess so. But speaking of the Trek Files, this week, the new show up today, 13th season, and it's the annual, semi-annual, every season, dive into the fan mailbag. This week we're doing fan mail from kids again from the 70s. It's wonderful. And if it's fan mail week, that means great friend of the show and co-producer John Champion is on mic with me to look at some of the mailbag letters we pulled out from kids and young people from the mid-70s, generally about 75, 76. So that's the Trek Files, wherever fine podcasts are caught, or at thetrekfiles.com on the Memory Alpha page, which is so easy to find and so easy to hot link to. And one more time, gang, treklandtreks.com. It's starting to heat up. If you are coming to LA or thinking about it and you've got a day spare and you want to do your own customized away mission, I will help you find out what there is to look at. We will get you there, concierge you around, chauffeur you. I'll help you wrangle your props, your cosplay, your whatever it is you want for the day. For you, for your +1, for your +3 or 4 or 5 or 6. Whatever you're up for, let me know. We'll work it out. Hopefully eliminate all the surprises ahead of time. I'll deal with the LA traffic. And we'll be happy to do that. Otherwise, it's Larry Nemecek everywhere on Blue Sky, on Twitter, on YouTube especially, Larry's Trekland. That's it for Instagram and Facebook too. Please like and follow and subscribe if you haven't already. And of course, portal47.net is your backstage pass to more Insider Trek. It's your mini-con all year long, no matter where your center seat is. For all the Star Trek fans who have no idea how much Star Trek they still have no idea about. That is going to do it for the live show here. Aside from, we're going to memorialize this. Let's do this now. All right. I'm going to take the break. We'll get into the chat in a second. But before I do, before we leave today, and you YouTubers, make sure and make a comment and try to join us live some Tuesday afternoon, right? At 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern. Or 9 UK time, 10 Central. But for right now, let us give this away. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to look at the chat. We're going to do trivia. I'm going to stand by here. I hope everybody's in the chat room. Now, I'm going to back scroll and look at chat in a little bit. But I'm right now marking this, okay? I'm at 1519. Yes, this is a giveaway. It'll be on my postage to get it to you, but you got to get me the winner, okay? I was advertising this, so I hope everybody got here, and I hope people hung around. Here's the trivia. I don't like to do this live in chat. I much rather do it the way I do an open house, where everybody has registered and I have names in a hat. It's very fair and completely random. This partly is who can type the fastest, but I'm hoping it's a short answer and also something that will make you think for a moment. So it's not just like, what is Beckett's last name? I mean, it's, not like that. What is Boimler's whole first name? Not like that. Those are not the real question. Or if you're ready for the question, call Grandma back in. Get everybody back in the room. Here we go. Are we ready? In this last season of Lower Decks, I thought this was going to be a trend, and it wasn't. But you have 2 bites at this apple. I'll take either one. All right, everybody? Not my ideal, but this is what I'm going to do. And if I'm wrong, I will accept a third, but I think there's just 2. There are, of all the episodes this 5th season, okay, 2 of them were clever adaptations of a movie title. Give me either one. 5th season Lower Decks, 2 of the episode titles are takeoffs, spoofs of otherwise classic movie titles. Give me either one. And yeah, that means more than one word to type. There's a hint. Yes, there you go, Zahir. A Farewell to Farms. And the other one was The Best Exotic Nanite Hotel. And if you haven't seen The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, you should. It's an awesome show. Zahir, ding, ding, ding. You got it. You got it. Yep, there you go. And Carl, that's the other one. You got the other one that would have worked, but Zahir beat you in here by my counter here. The good, the bad, and the ugly. No, that's not a thing. Not a thing. There you go. Okay, Zahir, you are domestic, right? You're in the U.S. You know what, Christoph? I'm thinking somewhere in the long litany of movie titles, there probably is a movie called Shades of Grey, not just the TNG episode, but yeah. Shades of Green was definitely a takeoff on the TNG episode as a title, but there you go. See, this is, yeah, titles are one thing, and the one thing I absolutely forbid ever doing to anybody is doing numbers. I will never do a Stardate trivia question. That's horrific, unless there's a really good overriding reason, and there never is. So sorry, gang, but I had the book title, so there was that. So okay, Zahir, get me your address if I don't have it already, and good. You have your little maid's outfit and everything. You're domestic. I know. So let me have it. Let me have it, and we'll do it. I've already done my wind up here, but thank you for being with me, some or part or all of 8 years here with Trekland Tuesdays Live. It's kind of amazing, but I still believe it's good. Just aside from the fact that my hair is changing color, it's going to wind up, maybe it's going to wind up permanently with my mom's ash. It didn't go white or gray. It just stayed ash. And I would love that if that's something I inherited from my mom. Because my dad's was like snow white when it went. Anyway, that's going to do it for this week. Now, I'll be back after the break, and we'll dive into the chat and see if I actually stirred up any conversation besides, oh my God, I can't believe he spilled that Coke. For now, thank you for helping us make 8 years. So blessed, thank you for being a part of. If you're watching online here with YouTube, please like and share and subscribe and ring the bell and do all the things. Take out a sample, the rest of the channel here. Take a look at Portal 47 if you like, or a Trekland Trek. Whatever we do here in Trekland, it's all about the backstage, the behind the scenes folks, the history, and the fandom interaction with that, and the business interaction with that. Getting it down, getting it recorded. And sure, I have my Canonista side too, that I love. It's what got me the companion. That's what, my TNG companion books, the concordances back in the day, got me into all this mess in a big way. Thank you so much for however long of the 8 years you've been on this journey with us. And everybody, please, 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 as I said at the very beginning, stay healthy, do all the things, stay woke, check your sources. And yes, Trek well, everybody. It's empty.